No, I know, because I'm always like, all right. I'm like, who are we talking to?
I want to make sure I had the report somewhere. Although I have the, here's the cliff notes.
Oh, yeah, the cliff notes. Oh, yeah, I didn't. I should have. I should.
No.
I don't want to print it. It's like 10,000 feet.
No, not, of course.
Take down a redwood tree.
All right. I believe we are in already.
Good, are we in?
Oh, wow.
I believe so.
Awesome. Well, listen, I'll start off on the festive side.
Well, good morning, everybody.
I know. Welcome to the green room.
Welcome to the green room.
You believe we are in the green room?
I do believe so, but
Good.
if not, we are recording anyways. So
Okay.
and,
Good. Next week.
Well, so I got to start on the whimsical side because when I walked in this morning, when I looked to the left, I did not see the box of donuts. Now, hang on. There's a story to this.
Oh.
So ER doctors are funny because, donuts in the ER is like, it's like intravenous
Yeah,
sugar.
intravenous sugar.
And, there's always a box of donuts around. So the point is, when you're an ER doc, you come in for the next shift. And if the box of donuts is already there, you're not really sure how long the donuts have been there. So the point is, certain donuts degrade faster than others. They did. No, well, that's another whole thing. Why bread, when it goes stale, it gets hard. But Oreo cookies, when they go stale, get soft. See, there's something there, but
food.
But
because it's all chemical breakdown of crap.
But in a box of donuts, here's the point: the glaze degrade first. Okay, straight glazed. They just do, and if that's the one that's left in the box,
they become really.
They do. They're bad.
They're really
Anything
bad.
with frosting on top is better.
It's better
because the frosting keeps it moist.
Yeah.
The cake donuts, the blueberry cake, they stay.
I know. Is
So
it because they're more dense, I wonder?
So I had a great sense of comfort yesterday when I came in because as an ER doc, I love a second day donut because it does. It draws me right back. Okay. but no donut per day. So I was glad to see that logic is still going on in the office and somebody threw it away at the end of yesterday.
It takes substance too. You want that craving because you're like, I still want a donut and it's hard. You're like, oh, you'll go underneath.
It's hard for me to understand, and it is. It's been 8 years literally since I've been in the ER doing ER work, but certain things take me back. And the second day donut is fun.
The Seinfeld episode. It could be like
well, that's the problem. You have to understand that in the ER, I would live my life daily by knowing that in the ER there would be a new Seinfeld type story about nothing. It's the donuts. It's who's got what coffee mug that day. And life stays that way. And I want to start that way a little bit whimsical because listen, it's a rough world these days. It is, and we've had some great guests the past couple of weeks, and I wanted to really go back and show Joe Goldstrich's Cancer and Cannabis book. Look for it, right? And last week we had Dr. Benjamin Kaplan's book.
Very
we've had some
awesome
guests.
Yeah, awesome guests.
So for sure. But Ruta and I this week get back a little bit to the nuts and bolts of Florida, what's going on. But we always start a little bit politically. What's going on in Washington, D.C. is crazy to me because there was a default speaker somehow selected in this. What's his name? Howard Johnson or Robert Johnson? I don't know if he came up from nowhere. The scary thing is that he's so far right and religiously.
But he's better than that other.
Right.
What was the guy with the?
I'm not sure. I don't. Jim Jordan. Yeah, Jim GYM because he was a wrestling coach. Of course, accused in a massive scandal in Ohio State.
I'm glad it wasn't him because I couldn't even tolerate.
He was bad, but this compromise speaker to me was just a rollover by the moderate Republicans, quite frankly, who just knew they had to do something and put somebody in. But Matt Gaetz was on Steve Bannon's show the next day extolling the victory. Quite frankly, because this is the guy that led, election denialism. But more important than that, for my, friends out there, right, in the gay community, transgender. I mean, this guy literally writes to the fact. No, he is anti everything. No, but I mean, really, to the extent of saying that, being gay leads to pedophilia and marrying your. Do you see that, Don? Your animals, marrying your pets. Or something seriously? No. I mean, really outside the bounds stuff. Yes. So I'm concerned. I did just watch Governor Ron DeSantis on Morning Joe this morning. You were already at work, so you didn't see the interview. It was a pretty interesting interview. I think only Donald Trump himself to make Ron DeSantis look like a good presidential candidate.
Yeah, this is
No,
true,
seriously,
yeah.
because I'll be honest with you, and he is firmly now speaking out that we cannot let Donald Trump become president again because of the danger to democracy.
It was funny.
He still did say, though, that he would support him, even though he was a convicted felon, because, you know, he raised his hand in the debate. He said he would stand by his pledge, because if you lose the game, you don't take your ball and just go home.
So we'd rather support Donald Trump.
I know.
I mean, I understand they're going to support their party, whoever they elect, but still.
So supporting party is one thing, you know, but
Sean DeSantis, I think he's buried himself so far down that there's no way he can.
He's still counting on the fact that, you know, he's boots on the ground in Iowa, boots with heels that high. I don't know if you see the picture.
Yeah, I saw that. No, he.
Where can I find this whimsy, Don?
He's very whimsical today.
Boots on the ground in Iowa, and he really thinks that Chris Christie does too. Chris Christie is hanging on New Hampshire, you know.
I don't know.
To just get that spark, because listen, the population kind of knee jerks, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, to that extent. You know,
and honestly, if they get on the fan bus of somebody else, because I think for them too, I think a lot of moderate Republicans are looking for a moderate Republican. The problem is there isn't even a moderate Republican.
I know. Because there's I think the scary thing about it is he really looked at certain things like Mitt Romney's book and other reports and how this whole speaker vote went down and everything. Because Tom Emmers was a moderate Republican who did win one of the nomination votes, but then there was fear that came down from the Trump-led. I don't know what you call them. It is.
Like a posse, you know, it's like an old-fashioned posse or like mafia gangsters. But here
you can't run democracies under fear. And what I see from, unfortunately, the Republican leadership now is that they want to have a minority run country with their views still taking effect in spite of the majority of the country not, you know, agreeing with them.
But you know what?
And that's why they're trying on voter suppression, and they're trying to pack the courts and, you know, all the things that they do to try to maintain their view of the world for as long as they can. It's scary. They may win.
But I think honestly that favors the Democrats, because I think then the Democrats and independents, because
smart, motivated.
I think somebody who's like the average, like independent, they're pretty educated on their side in the independent world. And I think for them, they're not going to go for the one flew over the cuckoo's nest anymore. I think like they had that with Trump and they're done with that.
I agree.
There's too many times. I don't think they're going to go for it.
There's malaise. There's malaise about the country right now. And there's an exhausted majority. You know,
fed up with government. I know.
I saw this crazy poll where Biden's got like 38% and Trump's got 34%, and Robert Kennedy Jr. somehow is like 22%.
I think people are sick of the regular politicians.
Where the hell does that come from? I just don't get it. You know,
this is my thing. Okay, we have how many millions of people in the United States? This is the best we got in the country. Like, are you kidding me? Like, because the regular people don't want to run for office because they're like, no, thank you. And they look at what goes on. You know, you can't make a change. You can't make a difference. You're going to have to join the idiocracy of this country and like follow them. So people are fed up. And I know, like, even like I was talking to some of my old campaign team who are now in Maryland. And they were saying, they're like, Ruta, would you ever run? And I'm like, you know what? No. And they're like, what about as an independent? They're like, just go with no government, like those crappy government people are done. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, because people are sick of, they're sick.
Well, they are. They don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do. And they're sick and tired. They don't even want to listen to politics anymore. And
that's dangerous. That's dangerous. And that allows for authoritarianism.
It does.
You know, quite frankly, to take over. So we have to hope on a smart and motivated electorate, you know, and that'll be interesting to see, you know.
But again, the problem is, like, even for the Democrats, a lot aren't motivated by Joe Biden, whom I think is doing a very good job considering all the circumstances. I think he's doing a good job. Could he do better? Yeah, you know, but like, so he was left with Trump. But the thing is, I think going forward, again, I think the Democrats a lot of them are tired too. They're like, okay, there's nothing changing. There's nothing changing. We have the House or we have the Senate. Nothing changes. Like it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And
Well, we can't let that
yeah,
frustration,
no,
take over, because that's when
no.
bad things,
They do,
happen.
can happen. And I think people need to get that spark.
I think there was just to get, listen. So Israel's Israel and Gaza is Gaza. No one wants children dying anywhere. Okay, seriously.
Yeah,
And we know that.
no.
I have shame at age 67. Okay. And it's a hard subject to approach. I'm a 67-year-old Jewish American male. I have shame in my lifetime that me as a society, me in general, with everybody else on this planet, hasn't solved certain things, man's inhumanity to man. I've lived through the killing fields in Cambodia, okay, as well in my lifetime. We've seen genocide. We've seen it. And it's man's inhumanity to man, okay, that continues to drive this society because of this, okay, in our pocket, delivering images that we don't really, quite frankly, understand, but what we do know is that man's inhumanity to man continues, and it fascinates me. It irritates the hell out of me. I really don't know what to do about it. These are generations, eons old conflicts,
and the problem
that in a modern generation we just can't get a handle on.
The problem is, to be honest, what's happening now is just creating the next 3 generations to have this hatred.
It is, but the hatred generated, from an event that was so beyond anybody's means of protest or activism. That's the point. Terrorism has to be called out for terrorism.
Yeah, but
terrorism has to be called out for terrorism. The response is the response. Hamas just this morning came out with the fact that they still will do this again and again and again until Israel is destroyed. So there's never been a recognition of the rights on either side, quite frankly. Okay, I got it. But somewhere, somehow, okay, something needs to happen, because this may draw us into global conflagration, quite frankly. And I think that's what everybody's trying to avoid. So nobody knows. Hostages need to be released. Okay, of course.
On both sides.
On all sides. Okay, but the point is, political hostages are different than people that were taken from their homes, from their beds, okay, at gunpoint.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They have the same thing on their side. So both sides need to deal with that. I mean, honestly, I have to say this because Israel has been labeled by Amnesty International as one of the worst accusers of human rights against the Palestinians. It's documented year after year that they are one of the worst offenders of human rights. That has to be noted, and it really has to be addressed, because when you're saying,
but the response should never be to come back and pull people from their homes but
the Palestinians were pulled from their homes in 1957, and they're continuously being pulled.
I got it.
3,000 Palestinians die every year.
And my point of 2 minutes ago is that as a society in 2023, we can't continue to have this. My point is, listen, but you have to look at all the influences too. No one can tell me that some of those terrorists, okay, that crossed over, hadn't played video games throughout their lives, where they actually did cut off the heads, okay, of people in the damn video games, okay?
No,
it's a different world in 2023. Ruta, that goes beyond protest.
I totally disagree. You know what they witnessed? They witnessed their grandparents being slaughtered. That's what happened.
So when they witnessing that, and you're right, it is perpetuating now. How many more years of this? How does it stop? Where does it stop?
Yeah.
You can't just throw up your hands and say about it. And I surely can't expect Israel to sit back and not try to make sure that this never, ever happens again.
But Gaza also has the right to say, get off our land. They took their land. They took their land.
But hasn't Gaza been under Hamas's control since 2005 to the extent of the ability to do? I know, but
then, okay.
I wish they'd be a little Monaco now. Rather than see Monaco or Hong Kong or Shanghai. There's been other examples where small pockets of civilization with assistance have risen, not
Yes,
to
okay,
have
Israel-
tunnels underneath.
Israel has risen because we
Absolutely,
give them
support.
$14 billion
Who
a
was,
year.
who should support?
Palestine gets
who sh-
500,000.
Then whose
Hello?
fault is it they didn't get their support? Whose
The
fault?
our government and saying
Ours? US government.
Our US and
Not
Britain.
Saudi Arabia's
No.
government or Jordan or Egypt's
The
government.
US and England, let's look who structured the state of Israel. Go back to history. Who structured it? The United States and England structured Israel. When they did, they went into Palestine and I
Talking about 45 and that era,
they
yeah.
went in and continuously the United States since that time has paid ridiculous amounts of money to support Israel as well as weaponry. And not only that, on the weapon side, any country in the Arab Gulf, when you talk about the Gulf countries, have to sign a mandatory signature from their government that they shall never take arms against Israel. So now people are like, well, why isn't the Arab world responding? They cannot. And then the money that's flowing through into Israel from the United States with weaponry, like I said, just cash 13 billion a year, weaponry in the billions every year. You give Palestine zero, and you also hold sanctions against any Arab country like Saudi or anyone to help Palestine. There are huge sanctions. So
on a humanitarian or developmental or economic basis,
you look at the
they
sanctions.
couldn't have set up. They couldn't have set up.
Did you ever go there?
Why was that?
Oh my God. Okay, so I have friends that went to Israel and they went to Palestine. When you try to go into Palestine from Israel, first of all, you're met with armament of like intense armament. Then you go through, you have only so many times like in the day that you can pass through the gates to get in and out. Even if you have family, if you're Palestinian and you have family that's in Israel, you have to wait twice a day. They'll allow the gates for 10 minutes to open. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Dangerous situation over the Ruta. You know, here's the point. Here's the point. To throw one's hands up and just say that there's moral equivalency, I surely can't.
There is no moral equivalency on both sides. There isn't.
And who's going to solve it? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that we carry this around in our pocket every day that gives us images, okay, that we never had before. And images are images, okay? When a hospital is bombed, okay, and originally you don't know who did it, but it's assumed who did it. Well, we don't really know. So it's things like that. And it's a knee-jerk society. That's what kind of started the entire conversation. Yeah. And once again, my shame would be, and I don't want to go into my grave, okay, you know, knowing that the world continues to be in the conflict that it is, but we can only control the things that we can control.
Exactly. Like I think that's the problem. Like I think, like you said, whether it's apathy and then it's creation of anger amidst like anger from generation to generation, it occurs.
Well, what was the purpose then of Hamas crossing over the border and doing what they did? Was it to prompt generations more of discord?
I think it's
and knee jerk us into a war? I mean, is that what they wanted?
No, it's somewhat retaliation because on average for
I don't think you retaliate in that way in an era of human 2023 is a Ruta. I mean, if you want to go back to the ancient era, where you would guillotine people's heads off in France or even further back.
Okay, how many Palestinians died at the hand of Israelis every year? Look, take a look.
Not in a manner such as this.
They were slaughtered. Check out Amnesty International. It's a fact. Israelis are terrorists.
When a Jewish student in the United States can't walk across the campus of Harvard University without feeling threatened and in danger, as cannot in Islamic.
Thank you. So
as cannot in Islamic. So it's Islamophobia. It's anti-Semitism. It's hate from all directions. But what sparked on October 7th, as you say, a now renewed generation of and I don't know how it gets solved.
It won't. I don't think it will. Honestly, like
and it fascinates me that you tell me that money couldn't be utilized that was sent to Gaza, that was spent to build tunnels and everything else that was built underneath the city that couldn't have been used to build skyscrapers in the city. and made it a tourist
think-
destination
I think-
for that entire region because I mean, it's right on the ocean and everything. I don't understand,
You need
to
to
that
go take a
extent.
trip and go see, and then,
No, it's slum, Ruta.
then you have to go
I-
read what the sanctions are, because if you.
And
sanction
those
a
I
country like Cuba,
got
how
it,
come we
and
don't
those are
have
things that
newspapers
those
in
are things
Cuba?
that aren't discussed, quite
They're
frankly,
not,
in
and
more
that's the problem.
superficial type of forums
Or any
that
forum.
lead me to want to understand more why that couldn't have become a little Shanghai.
Because
Okay.
they don't want it to be.
Oh,
The United States, they don't want it to be. Israel does not want it to be. Europe does not want it to be. They don't. And the reason they're suppressing it, it's a game. It's a huge game. And they
unfortunately, here we are. And if you say, why is there a malaise and why aren't people going to vote and why aren't people going to, get involved? It's because of that. Some understanding that there's, just some, I don't know, listen, we always talk about Earth A and Earth B, those people that are existing on another planet and those people that believe that there's this multi, country cartel actually, pulling the strings, this, that, whatever,
I mean, there are,
I
I
don't know.
mean.
I try to keep it simple and come to work every day and take care of my
Yeah,
medical cannabis
because I think
patients.
politically,
And I
it's
guess
a
we're
lot
gonna get to
bigger.
that.
Yeah, because it's honestly, it's way bigger than us, and if
It
we
is,
know.
we live it every day, and listen, I don't
would-
live, I don't
thought
live my
you
Judaism on my
don't
sleeve,
live
and
it
everybody
every day,
knows
'cause I
that.
don't live it
but-
every day.
But when I see a report, out of Miami where, Jewish women are now going and buying guns and getting, gun training and everything because they feel some degree of feeling threatened, that to me is a world that I wish I never had to
Well,
see.
It's
Well,
just that
it's
from a
just-
generation below you guys, I can say this, it's disgusting.
And it's my shame
It's
is that
absolutely
generation
disgusting.
that what could I have done more to have solved it?
We
I don't
did
know.
as people, travesties have happened, but we gotta move forward, and the only way is together, and
Well, you gotta
why
talk.
create the hate?
But the
Hate is bad, man.
The hate's
It
bad,
is.
but when it's instilled,
Hate
I
needs
mean, you have hate in this country, and that's a problem too. Like, you look at the generations here, the anti-Semitism, the racism here, it's taught. It's taught by
Oh,
the parent. It
100%.
is. It's taught by the parents. And so, and then again, I mean, even I'll talk my generation too. Like, my parents came from Lithuania. Am I pro-Russian? Never in my life will I be pro-Russian because the Russians slaughtered my family. Do you think I'm going to be like, ooh, good for them and let them take over Lithuania? No. Sorry, if that happens, you're going to be very defensive. And I think that's and even for me, it doesn't affect me. I was born in this country, but do I want somebody to occupy something? No. Do I want them to take over? No. Like Ukraine, I defend.
Well, there's
Ukraine.
genocide in Ukraine, of course.
Yeah,
They're
so,
indiscriminate bombing in Ukraine,
They are.
bombing hospitals in Ukraine.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's
So-
man's inhumanity to man. It's
It's
just,
awful in this day and age, but unfortunately, humanity is humanity, and I don't think there's never been a time where everyone's been at peace anyways in the world. There never has, and I don't think there ever will be. I don't think want to be the voice of gloom and
Human
doom, but it's human nature. I think everybody wants somebody's territory, somebody wants somebody's land, somebody wants somebody's weapons, somebody wants somebody's oil. It's going to be everybody wants something from somebody, and I don't think that'll change. So
that was the
sadly,
Pandora's box that was open,
It is.
to that extent. And
But
human nature is,
going.
but still, one would think that we would have gotten to a better place, and I don't know. It sounds a little superficial to move into the Florida medical cannabis
But we are.
program, but we did. Yeah, I know, but we did put it up on the green room thing.
yes.
No, listen, by the
It's a whole-
numbers. Per se, actually, it's funny because we
lot.
live by numbers every day. Card good for 365 days, 1 year.
1 year,
Orders, on the other hand, good for
210.
210 days. Not half of 420, everybody. The OMU was not that smart when they put
I
the
know they
program
should have been
together.
a little smarter.
One of my
on
favorite
this.
jokes. Flour is 2.5 ounces every 35 days or half of 70 days. How about that? So those numbers have always existed. In my humble opinion, they'll always exist for medical here in Florida. I think even in spite of whenever oncoming legal adult use comes, and who knows when that'll be. We're waiting for the Supreme Court arguments, by the way. Ashley Moody is supposed to.
Okay. Oh,
Right,
this-
and
she's not gonna let it fly, but
Right. So the True Leaf Lit initiative, Smart and Safe Florida, is at Supreme Court review level now. They have the signatures and everything. States come out. They don't want it on the ballot in November of 2024. So they have their 4 oral arguments about it. I think we had Brady Cobb on talk about, or one of our guests. We talked about that explicitly, ridiculously. Yeah, stupid arguments. But anyway, but the state will probably win. I don't think they want Democratic voters going to the polls in
No,
24
and it'd be
with
a big
another
push, like,
big
a
issue.
push. Yeah,
you know.
anything marijuana related, they'll come out. and
So
get
I don't
their
think
votes.
I don't think it's going to fly. But as I tell every single patient, it's irrelevant really for medical because it's going to be taxed, and that's another number. We'll see what number that
Oh,
tax
the
is.
taxes.
For sure. And it's gonna be regulated also in literally every state where you have medical already and then legal adult use comes in afterwards. Those numbers are always underneath the medical allowed numbers. So
Yeah.
you're gonna see the MMTCs lobbying heavily to have everybody's limits raised because they want to sell
They
product,
wanna
of course.
sell.
Other numbers. So
So let's-
eight,
yeah,
eight,
these
eight, oh,
numbers
we'll
are
get to those in a
crazy.
second. 8 more dispensaries, by the way, coming under the Pigford case,
Pigford
the Black
case, yeah.
Farmer case. People forget about that. And then 22 more. Okay, so we're gonna have at
A
least
lot.
30 more dispensary
That's
organizations here in the state of Florida, all set up in a vertical fashion, having to do seed to sale. So it's gonna be really
Where's
interesting.
it growing? I want to know where all of these grows are going to be. Like, I mean, that's a lot of grows.
It is, and my prediction is not all of those companies will
Are gonna
make
make
it
it,
necessarily
yeah.
because it's the market goes. Let's get to other numbers. How many patients in the state of Florida? I don't have it in front of me. I could open up the OMU update. They do send it out weekly. I think there's
It's
858,
850 or
8,000,
850 roughly. Yeah,
something like that,
that.
1,000 patients in the state of
Which is
Florida.
a lot.
It is, but it's growing at an interesting
Slower.
rate, slower than it had
It's slow.
before. This will come out in the peer review, pattern review report that we'll talk about in a second. But
Yeah.
literally, Florida's an open system, when it
is.
comes to transparency.
Yeah.
We know exactly how many patients are in the
That part's good.
program,
I like that. part,
exactly how
actually.
many doctors are in the
How many,
program.
what they write, how they write.
And more than that, everybody, and this is Dr.
is
Barry's
very-
cheat sheet.
I love
Okay, if you remember crib notes, okay. I don't know anybody's name specifically to see.
Love that.
So just last week, the state of Florida, as they do every year, and it's actually in statute, they are required to produce the OMU, Office of Medical Marijuana Use in Florida. Only 2 minutes. Oh my God.
Oh my
No,
God.
I know. No, I know.
Oh God.
No, they're required by statute to produce a report
Yeah.
that points out, and it's probably only good that we only have a couple, 3, 4
Yeah, to
minutes
go
to
over
discuss
this,
this because we can't go too deeply.
No.
Because I'm not going to call out any specific doctor or group of doctors, but we will.
But we will. Here's called the Billionaires Group.
Here's the
We've
point.
commonly referred
So
to.
it's very transparent. So
Yeah,
the
it
state
is
puts out every year, they're required by statute, who has how many patients, how much cannabis they've ordered, okay?
And which method.
And we've seen this every year, and what they do is that they codify the doctor's name so
Yeah.
that they kind of try to bury it.
Bury it a little.
In the early reports, I'm proud to say that I was one of the top 5 doctors in the state, had my own codified. I think was I AY? I don't know, something. We figured it out.
Yeah.
But those were early reports. And in the early days of Sarasota County, we had the largest practice. There was a certain time where literally half of the THC in the state of, in the county of Sarasota was coming out of our practice.
Yeah.
Not so
the case
now.
anymore. Mhm.
In fact, we're not even the largest in Sarasota County
No.
anymore. There's a couple practices that are larger.
Yeah, a little bit.
And that's okay. Listen, our
It is.
intention was never to be the largest practice. We've
But the
always wanted to
best.
be the best.
We want to be the
Practice.
best, and we still have that.
The most educational practice, the most advocative practice. Did I say that right? No, seriously. And that's what we're going to do.
No, it is.
We're going to stay the course. We're going to fight for.
We fight, and we do things the right way. We do them by the law. And
So
we're
there's some
not
numbers that are
lawyers.
completely out of the
Oh,
bounds
wow.
of what you would have an
Maybe out of-
expectation of.
Just the number of patients like one doctor has.
Well,
like I
for
mean,
sure, we're not
some-
going to mention any specific
No,
number
but
because
there's a
that'll
lot.
probably. But my point is, it's not hard to see the list. All you have to do is read down the columns. There's a column all the way at the right in one of the sections. What is it, Ruta? About a 245-page report
Yeah,
or
it's
something
about
like that.
245
Because it
pages.
literally breaks it down by
By
county,
county,
every single doctor, by
Every
route
doctor,
of administration, by qualifying
milligrams,
condition,
20 milligrams they
by
need.
milligrams of THC that come
Yeah.
out of the practice.
Yeah,
And some of the numbers are kind of stunning.
way out there.
So we have
Way,
somewhere in the
way-
neighborhood of 6,500 or so patients or whatever. Our numbers of our THC allotment were actually right in line with
Yeah,
what
they
you would
were
expect.
very- yeah, very,
Because the
very-
state only allows a certain amount, so you can kind
So
of
you
do the
think,
math,
yeah.
And there is a request for exemption system where you can
Sure.
give more. There are practices, on the other hand, that their number of patients, the amount of THC coming out of the practice is incredible,
Is
quite frankly. So we're not
mind-boggling.
sure what's going on in
Yeah,
those practices.
mind-boggling.
And some other practices that just have numbers of patients under, one specific, or maybe, we don't know. We're not sure. But we know that physically, if you're going to see cannabis patients appropriately,
Yeah, there's
it
no
takes
way.
time, it takes passion and effort and a staff and a plan. And, listen, our goal will always be to be working with the state under their guidelines to make sure that every single patient that comes to see us gets what they come here for.
Yeah,
That's safe, educational
absolutely.
access to the regulated, state,
And we follow the
approved
guidelines.
product. And we
But
follow the
and
guidelines.
So like for our size office, just so you have some background, so like our size office, which is like roughly 6,500 patients, other practices may have like around that. All of us were writing like saying that couple 100,000 milligrams of THC.
Well,
and
it's
some-
actually 744, hang on,
we have that-
million milligrams of THC. It sounds like a lot, but there are practices in the billion.
like 18 billion.
Was there an 18
There was
billion?
one 18. There was one, I think on Miami-Dade for 18. I was
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
I highlighted
I
it.
guess I was kind of stuck on 2.3
Yeah, even
billion.
2.3, some have
I don't
2.3,
know,
some,
whatever.
there was like an 18.
But 744 million, I mean, like I said, the numbers are the numbers, but it's easy to pick up the billionaires because all you gotta do is
look down
look down the column and
and then their billionaires are there.
they're there.
Why
So,
don't,
I don't know.
who needs to crack down on those
Well,
billionaires?
Listen, what I say is that the state should observe what's going on within that practice. And when you say crack down, I just say, just keep your eyes open, because those of us who do this on a legitimate
Well,
fashion,
that's what I think, why.
we
is
want
it
it,
those numbers?
right, we want everybody to follow the same rules that we do.
Yeah, that's.
It's really not an exploitation of a market, but the caring
No.
of patients that need,
But
medical cannabis
but
care.
I like the fact that like all of us can go like anywhere.
But the numbers are there.
Yeah, and the hands are held high as to what we do in our practice. I don't know how some of these physicians even can sleep at night, like with those numbers of patients, like physically, just to see that amount, it's impossible.
That's
To
my
see
point. I
It's impossible, so
I
don't know how they're
think
doing
the
it.
state should just look at the throughput of a patient through those practices. That's
Yeah,
all.
and just take a
And,
look at
listen, I mean, oversight is oversight, and I'm not calling for oversight of legitimate practices.
No, but the problem is
But the numbers are there that are
that
outliers, are outliers, and if it's just it could be a clerical thing, quite frankly. Maybe somebody is just putting certifications in a different fashion. I don't know. Maybe some people are using the RFE process in a reverse fashion. In other words,
Giving them
everybody
the
gets an
maximum
RFE,
fee for the
but doesn't
maximum
necessarily
and
use
use
it
it.
until it kicks in.
Oh, maybe.
But the
No,
OMU's
but-
never really given us. Here's the point,
Yeah, they don't.
and
do
what I
that.
continue to call for, and I know we got to wrap it up because I have patience. And what I continue to call for is we need an oversight panel at the OMU level of boots on the ground doctors and
Should
clinic
be.
managers
100%
and
should be.
patients who can advise the OMU on these type of things, so
Yeah.
that we all know the right way to
They
do it.
things. But they don't care. Like
Well,
I
that
don't know,
is-
it's like an apathy.
Well, that goes back to 15 minutes ago conversation.
Yeah.
I'm teasing you. We can't let that type of apathy, take over. But my point is, and my commitment to my patients and the Florida medical cannabis community, we're going to continue to do things in the best way that we can, with honesty and integrity and
absolutely.
education every day for our patients. And I think that's what people count on us for. So
I think so,
we will
too.
see you next week in
See
the
you
green
guys
room,
next
because
week.
weeks go by.
They do.
Way too
Not
fast to
next
catch
week,
up.
My
the
God.
week after.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. All right. We will take a week.
Oh, what's happening next week?
Don's on vacation.
Chamber.
Oh, chamber. Oh, maybe we can record something.
Yes,
Derek
so
wants
we
to
can-
record.
Yeah, maybe we'll
Yeah.
put
Oh,
something
so
down.
maybe we can.
But anyway, we'll
record
see you in
next
the
week.
green
Next
room
week.
soon.
We're gonna take care of logistics later.